anything you say can and will be used against you.
But
I remain silent.
well, I tell you what, Carl, at any point that you want to pause for whatever reason, you want something taken off, I'd be happy to remove that from the record. It's not even a problem. There, okay?
Yeah, because I probably don't remember it.
I tell you what, I don't even remember what I did last night, other than I know I had to call Tracy last night about some details, and I'm probably gonna have to do exactly the same thing tonight about some
Damn
details.
hell.
Okay, so we'll get started. So let's do a little bit of housekeeping. So today is Monday, December 5th, 2022. My name is Weston Saito from Pacific Historic Parks, and I will be conducting this oral history with Mr. Clinton Carl Flinner. Mr. Flinner, do we have permission to record this oral history using both audio and visual equipment?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about early life. Where were you born and raised?
In Charleston, West Virginia,
Charleston, West Virginia. What year was that?
1926.
Okay. Talk a little bit about your family. Any siblings?
Half a dozen or so.
Woo! You the young one or the middle?
I'm the oldest.
Oh, you're the oldest. Oh, so you took care of them all.
Well, tried to,
Oh, okay.
but I had help.
Of course. But they all looked up to you right there, of course.
Oh, definitely.
And then
Either that or get spanked.
of course. And then did you have any family serving in the military before you as well too?
No.
No. So you would be the first of your entire whole family in your legacy. Wow, that's impressive.
As far as I know.
Okay, of course. And then so we have to talk about the 20s and then the 30s of it. So the Great Depression.
Mhm.
What was that like for you growing up during that time period?
Rough.
What were the things that you had to do to, I mean, especially as the oldest sibling, you would have to really take care of? Did you have to take on other responsibilities?
Well, I helped my dad. He picked up any kind of work he could, plus what his main job was there at the brick place, to get enough money to feed us.
Mm-hmm.
Money then, nobody knew anything about it. But he worked for 10 cents an hour. Okay?
Okay. And try, come again, your father did what? What was his main job, you said?
Boy, he worked at a brick manufactory.
Brick manufacturing, okay. And you helped out in the manufacturing or just assisted him in
Just extra jobs I could, like they had the mines where they dug their clay and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they needed explosives up there to do the blasting and everything. And a lot of times the road around the mountains,
Mm-hmm.
it was unpassable. So I'd charge them $500 or so to take it up there. I had a dump truck,
Mm-hmm.
and my uncle was driving it. We was hauling sand and gravel to the mines up there. And it got away from him, so he went down the hill with it, smashed it up. So we made a tractor deal out of it. Put a small bed, about a 6-foot big box bed on
Mm-hmm.
it. And I used that to charge the company for the things that I haul up to the mines by coming straight up the hill. I put chains on it, and I'd haul blasting powder and caps and
Mm-hmm.
fuses and whatever up there for them. And they paid me.
Oh yeah, they paid you well, but I mean that must have been a little intimidating carrying blasting caps in a truck all the time right
Well, I
there.
know I carried him in my socks, them on my legs. Yeah, I didn't want anything to touch them because you only got a quarter of an inch to crimp them
Mm-hmm.
to make them explode.
Yeah.
Well, if something hit that where you're supposed to crimp,
Yes.
goodbye.
So you hid the blasting caps in your socks.
Around my legs.
Well, thank God for no accidents right there. Of course, we're glad you didn't have that. So let's fast forward a little bit. in 1941, December 7th, the attack on Pearl Harbor. Were you in the military
Not
at the time?
then.
Not then. So what were you doing on that day, if I may ask? Or do you remember that event happening?
Yeah, I remembered, but I was at a movie, and they interrupt the movie to announce it that Pearl Harbor had been attacked by the Japanese, and America was at war, and President
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt
Mhm.
would announce it in a few days,
Mhm.
and sure enough he did.
So what was your initial thoughts about the attack on Pearl Harbor? I mean, let me ask you another question. Did you know where Pearl Harbor was?
It was
before?
in the Pacific somewhere.
Don't worry, most people did not know that as well too. So, so you were at a movie, and then you heard it from. They literally stopped the movie,
Mhm.
and the announcer just came right on, and that is amazing. So, what did you join up right away after the attack on Pearl Harbor, or when did you enlist? Actually, is the better question.
That I can't know. I can't figure out when I did. But it was sometimes that year.
Mhm.
See, they did it in December,
Mhm.
and I stayed home for Christmas,
Mhm.
and sometime after January.
So in 42.
Hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Then, how did you feel about like the rest of the community? How did your community react to the news about the attack on and the bombing of the Pearl Harbor?
Oh, you could hear thousands of different reasons, and I thought, well, I didn't like it because that was United States property,
Yes, sir.
and they shouldn't have done it.
Mhm.
But I didn't have any reason for then for joining up to stop them. So I sit back and listen to the situation, see how it was going before I did anything.
Exactly. So you really kind of took the information and made your own decisions and
Right.
okay, understood. Because I mean, that's probably one of the biggest slogans of World War II, especially early on in 1942, would
Yeah.
be "Remember Pearl Harbor," and then so you decided to join the Army Airborne.
Right.
Why? Why the Airborne of all things?
They paid more money.
Oh, okay, that's a very important thing right there.
I was getting $50 more a month and go to do the same thing. I said, well, why not grab it? So they sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia, giving me a parachute, put me in an airplane, said jump out. That's what I done.
Jump out of a perfectly good airplane for extra money. That sounds like a great reason, which most people don't know about actually right there. So thank you for telling that right there. Because really, the Airborne was kind of that newest version of the branch at the time. It was based off of the German equivalent during
Yeah.
the 30s, and that's why you were also sent to North Carolina, correct?
Huh?
Were you sent to North Carolina as well?
Fort Benning, Georgia.
Fort Benning, Georgia. Okay. So, why the demolition school? Because you were an engineer, right?
Right.
Going back
Well,
to the
you
last
either
one.
fix things or
Mhm.
you blow them up. In a war like that,
Mhm.
and a parachutist, they want you behind the lines. You do two things. You fight this way, some Americans in, and then that way against the Japs. You're fighting forward and backwards
All at the same time.
all at the same
And
time.
that's what you need to be for a paratrooper and then also a demolition expert. For
Right.
Too.
And at night, when everything was quiet and everything, I slipped through the lines, and the headquarters of our outfit wouldn't give me a list and a location of what they want destroyed. I slipped through the lines with least clothing on and more equipment to get the job done that they wanted done.
Okay, so you're talking about this is a specific mission. Where did this take place? Like, which island or campaign? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
Okay. Because that would have been probably, with the 11th, would have been Leyte or New Guinea, the Philippines.
No, we were in the Philippines, yeah.
So it'd be the Southwest Pacific area.
Mhm.
Okay. I was just going to say back that I thought that goes back to your blasting cap in the Sauk States that you just love explosives. Right there.
Well, I do. I love to blow things up. And that gives me more courage and more strength and more ideas about it.
Okay. Hey, if it works, it works. And like you said, getting paid that $50 extra, that makes a big deal, especially at that time. Okay. So, what was basic training like in the Army at the time, especially for the Airborne? That was very different from anything else.
Oh, yeah. It was tough, rough, and it strengthened you, and it made a combat person out of you.
Yeah, because the Airborne would be probably the equivalent to right now any of our special forces, because the Airborne was the special forces
Right.
during World War II. Like, what was one of your specific roles as an airborne engineer? You talked about a little bit of demolitions, and you said you got to sneak behind enemy lines. Any other duties
That was the points right there. Destroy.
Destroy things.
And they meant destroy, not damage, completely destroy.
Really loved his explosives right there, this man. So, when you were in Georgia, then you were shipped out through Hawaii. You took some time off here before you went to the Southwest Pacific area, right?
Not too much.
Not too much. Didn't you get a chance to spend a little bit of shore leave here in Hawaii before?
They were supposed to give me 30 days. They gave me 5. And I was on the daggone ship heading for.
So what did you do for those 5 days? Hit the beach, hit the bars?
Oh, I don't drink.
Oh,
I
okay.
never did drink. So, little times at the beach, sometimes with the girls, and just like that, just having fun and making life pleasant.
Absolutely.
But in the back of my mind, I know what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to end,
Mhm.
and I was going to sit that way. And sure enough, it did. And I made the best of it.
So, do you remember any of your time in any of the specific campaigns, like in New Guinea or Leyte, that you'd like to talk about as well, too? Offhand?
I don't like to talk about any of it, but I did my best to stay alive. And what I did, if something moved, I shot it. And I'd say, so sorry, Joe, if I hit American. But I didn't take a chance. It was my life, and it was yes, you live, or yes, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
It was up to me. And that's the way I felt about it, and that's the way I acted.
Understood. And you're still here because of that decision making right there.
One of the things that was interesting that Carl talks about is jumping into the islands when the Marines were surrounded to help them.
Do you know which specific campaign that was?
Possibly. Hey, Carl, you were telling me about when you jumped in, when you paratrooped into some of these islands to help the Marines.
Yeah.
Can you tell Weston about that? And do you remember, was that the Solomon Islands?
It could have been,
Okay.
but there's 3 groups of islands in that same area that the Marines were in.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have been either one of the 3, or all the 3,
Mm-hmm.
because they never give me any time off. I would do what I was supposed to do, and then they would take over and drive them on out, then leave me free, so I'd come back to my base. And the company commander dressed me up and feed me and get me trained and give me training. And next thing you know, one of the companies would call for reinforcements. So there I go. By air.
So, how many combat jumps have you actually done in your career? Do you remember?
Oh, over half a dozen.
That's extreme.
Because I carried 100 pounds of composition C2 back here, plus my parachute.
Mm-hmm.
On my legs, I carried my demolition caps, and on this side, I carried my string and fuses and caps.
So all that training growing up, having those blasting caps and the socks, I guess it really paid off when you were jumping into combat as well too, because
Oh yes.
that worked perfectly again. So
If it went right, if it didn't, you wouldn't coming back.
and apparently it worked right every single time. So
I
congratulations.
made sure as best I could do that it would be right.
And then so you guys had to pull out the Marines, is what Tracy was saying, huh?
Well, I helped them out a few times. They won't admit it, but
We'll ask a Marine later about that. Possibly. see what his thoughts are on that.
just to ask them if they were tied down on the island.
Carl,
Oh.
what would happen though when you would jump in? Can you kind of tell Weston from like leaving the plane down to the islands and helping out?
What would happen?
Yeah, what would happen? So you were in the planes coming in.
Well, you just hope that that guy on the ground wasn't a good shot. Because you had bullets flying up in there, and a lot of times half your parachute would be gone.
Absolutely.
They made sure, or tried to make sure, that I didn't make it. But I give them a real rough time if I did, and I did.
So
I'd accidentally drop a grenade or stick a dynamite or composition C2. Oops, I dropped it, but I can't pick it up now. Boom! And start hard.
he really loves his explosives right here, this man. Right there.
Well, we were trained,
Mhm.
or I was trained,
Yes, sir.
that the explosives was on my side, and without them, I wouldn't have made it. So I kept that in mind. And buddy, we did get along real good.
Okay. And then Carl,
Mhm.
could you maybe talk about some of the influential people in your military career? You know, how did they influence you? Anyone in particular you think of?
No, yeah, my training in Fort Benning, Georgia, that set me up solid. It told me, trained me for everything I could do, and I did it. There at the base, at the Georgia, Fort Benning, Georgia. And the instructor said when I finished, to his satisfaction, come before him and a base commander, and I'd have to explain to him everything I learned and why I learned it and what it was. To both of them satisfaction. And if he said you can't and don't, you're not going anywhere. I said, what do you think I've been training for? We don't worry about that. We want to know if you're capable when you leave here to do what you're supposed to do. And if you're not, and we don't think you are, you're not going anywhere. And they didn't smile when they said it either.
Those are good commanders. So let's talk a little bit about, after World War II or post-war. Were you part of the rebuilding of Japan as well too, or what are your thoughts?
I was in Japan quite a bit. I was at the Sendai.
Oh, okay.
I was on the southern, I was not on the northern end, but the southern island.
Yeah.
It was 2 islands. Hokkaido
Hokkaido. Yeah.
was up here, and I was on the north tip of the southern island. Below that was just hop, skip, and jump to the next one. And that's where it was stationed.
What was your duties while you were stationed out there in post-war Japan?
Oh, not too much other than training and supervising projects and something for the base, improving stuff like that.
Didn't have to destroy any of the old military equipment or anything like that as well too. As a demolitions expert, I figured they would call you.
Well, only if it was enemy stuff. We didn't have enough equipment for our own self and couldn't get it, so they had to take care of it. But the rest of it, they captured and everything. We just blew it up. A lot of it we could have used, but we didn't know where we was going to hold it or give it back. If we give it back, we was giving their own equipment to them. And the commander said, "No, you destroy it." And that's what we done.
So, and then, Carl, you didn't stay in the military for your whole life. You didn't retire, right?
No.
Okay. When did you get out?
Man, I don't know.
49? It was 1949? Okay. So you decided to leave the military. Where did you go? What?
I got a job there in West Virginia, Charleston, West Virginia.
And what were you doing then in your new life now, outside of military?
Well, I started out driving a truck and hauling brick.
Back to the good old basics right there. Were you still carrying the blasting caps in your...
No.
You finally stopped that.
I finally laid that aside, buddy, because that wasn't to be played with.
No.
You either handled it right, or you wouldn't handle it anymore. It made sure of that. Even the blasting cap. Well, I had so many of them, it would cut my legs off.
So, and then, so that's what you did for so many years?
Well, no. One day, I took a load of brick to a project. I was unloading it. This man just kept walking around and looking and walking around and looking. He did it all the time I was there unloading. And he finally came over and he said, "Are you happy with what you're doing?" I said, "Well, I'm getting paid good money for it." And he said, "What do you think good money is? What amount?" Well, I said, $200-300 a week. He scratched his head and he walked around a little bit more. And he says, "I've been watching you for quite a while. And I like you, the way you work, everything. What if I offered you a good salary? Would you change jobs?" And I thought a little bit. I said, "How good a salary?" He thought about an hour and he'd come over. And he said, "What do you think now?" I think, "What? I haven't heard anything." He said, "How much do you think you are worth?" I said, "It depends on you. What do you want me to do?" He kept on, and he come back over and I said, I tell you what, I'll give you 300 a week. And I said, 300 a week. I said, that's more than I'm getting now, but I think you want me to do more than what I'm doing now. He said, all right, well, forget the salary for right now, but I'll explain to you what I want you to do, or need you to do. I want you to work for me. I don't have a company, but I own the corporation. So what's the difference? I didn't know there was a company between a company and a corporation. He said, I'll give you 500 a week. I got about that big, and I said, wow. So I said, when do you want me to start to work? He said, that's up to you. I kept thinking about that 500. It was laying on the table. All I had to do was reach and get it. And I said, well, what would my duties be? He said, we'll talk them over later. I thought, that don't sound so good to me. And I went on home, and a couple of days passed, and I was out on the job, and he went to the company that I worked for, would know where I was, and they told him where I was, so he came out. And I recognized him as soon as I saw him, and he said, what have you decided about a new job? I said, what do you got in mind? He said, I want you to work. Oh, I don't know, I've got several projects I can use you in as project manager. Oh, now we're talking somewhere. I said, what salary? Forget the salary, we'll work it out. So I went back and I told him at the plant, I said, I'm quitting. And they blew their stack. You can't quit. I said, I just did. And I started to work for him. I was getting 10 times more money from him per week than I was on a regular job. I said, I like this. And he just kept, every time, now and then he'd give me another raise. And he didn't make them look small either. When I quit working for him, I was making $1,150 a week.
That is amazing. I don't even think that's still a lot of money right now. That is very impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't worry about the money part. He said, I like what you do it right, and you study it out, and that's what I like. And what I like, I'll buy. And he did. I worked for him for several years after that. And finally, I was getting $1,150 a week.
It's really good right there.
But
So
I put everything right.
Mhm.
If somebody wasn't doing it, he had 310 or 15 employees.
Mhm.
He said, you're in charge of them. You're in charge of the whole projects I got.
Mhm.
What do I do now? I never had a position that big. And I started walking pretty easy, studying things out, studying each worker, and what they're doing and how they do it, and what they thought about their position they had. And it took me about 4 weeks. This one guy, he knew everything. He had done everything, been everywhere, and he was going to do it his way. I asked him why. He said, "'Cause I know more than you know." I said, "You do?" "Yeah." I said, "Okay, we'll see." That was on a Thursday, and on a Friday, he was working. Saturday, we didn't work. Went back Monday, and he was running things himself. Asked him what he was doing. "Oh, I'm picking up all this other stuff." I said, "Who told you to do it?" He said, "Oh, I do it myself. I just told myself." And I thought, well, now if I'm in charge, I'm supposed to be telling him, sitting him telling me. So there was a morning, and that afternoon, he was doing something, and I knew it was wrong, wasn't correct. I called him in and talked to him. He knew more than I knew, and he was going to do things his way. And I asked him, I said, "Do you like your job you got?" "Oh, yeah." "Okay." It was about 10 o'clock, and about 2 o'clock I called him in. I'd been watching him every movie he made, and I didn't like it. And I asked him about how he come to all these conclusions that he had been making for the guys to follow. Oh, he'd been through all that before, and he knew what he was doing. Well, that didn't sit with me right. 2 o'clock that afternoon, I called him in, and I said, "We're not going to make it." He said, "Oh, why not?" I said, "You're not doing things right, and you're not supposed to be running the job." "Oh, yes, I am." I said, "No, you're not. I'm running the job, and you're fired." He jumped up out there and went direct to my office. Talked to the manager. He said, manager took him to the president. He said, "Well, sit down. Tell me your problem." He kept him in there about an hour and a half, 2 hours, listening to him. And he said, "Well, I'll get in touch with you." So, okay. So he thought he had everything under control. Well, the guy called me in, and he said, "Carl, you're having problems." I said, "Well, how did you know?" He said, "One of your employees came to me, which he shouldn't have done, told me all the things that you and him disagreed on. And you still have him around?" "Well, I haven't talked to him since he talked to you." He said, "Well, if I was you, I would talk to him." So I called him in. I talked to him for a while to listen to his side of the story. I thought, well, it just sounds pretty good, except you don't know what you're doing. "Oh, yes, you did. He was an expert at it." I said, "Well, I can't use you anymore. You're fired." "Oh, you can't fire me." I said, "You're dismissed. You can go to the office and get your salary that's due you, and that's it. You're off the project." So instead of doing that, he went to the manager and talked to him, and he said, "Well, sit down. I'll listen to you." He told him all the things, the problems he was having with me, things that I was doing that he'd do otherwise. And I said, "Well, I'll think this over and let you know." He no more than left there, and he called me in. "What in the world do you want with me now?" So when he mentioned the guy's name, I knew what he was talking about. And he said, you fired him. I said, he's right. I fired him. He said, you think you're in control enough of the organization to fire the employees? I said, you're the one that put me there. He turned around and looked at the guy that was his buddy, officer, and he said, you know, he's right. He said, you want the man fired? Yes. So the man went back to him to explain to him why I fired him. And the guy sat him down, listened to his story, and said, well, I'll let you know. He said, well, I'd like to know now so I can go back to work. He said, that won't be possible. If Flinner fires you, you're fired. And boy, that's when all hell broke loose. He went to everybody in the other company, from the floor manager to the top of the company. And they all listened to him, sat down and listened to him. Called his secretary in, and state each statement that he tells each one, write it out. And he did that. And when I fired him, I told him, I said, you're fired. I said, you go to the manager and get your money, what we owe you. I don't want to see you on the jobs anymore. So they ironed that out. And the guy, the company manager, owner, called me in. I said, now, what the heck have I done that he wants to know about? I said, well, you go for me? So I said, okay. So I went and told his secretary he wanted to see me. She buzzed him on the thing, said, you want to see Flinner? He's here. Yep, send him in. I said, well, here we go. Went in there and he started talking about this and that, and I said, no, wait a minute. I don't want to hear any sad stories. I want to know why. And he gets to the point. We really stack. Nobody talked to him like that. I said, why stand here and tell me all this stuff when I know it's no good because I already know it? He looked at me. He said, who's running this outfit? I said, well, in the field, I'm running it. In the office, you're running it. He went over and talked to that other guy at the desk. And they talked. I went in another room and talked. Come back in about an hour. I sat out there and just taking it easy. And he said, where did you get all your information? Who's doing what? I said, when you put me in charge of something, I'm in charge of it. And what I do, I answer to you for. Not the person that's in trouble goes to you. Went back to the desk and talked to this guy for about 15 minutes and come back. He said, you're right. He said, did you fire him? I said, yes, I fired him. The man went back to him to find out his position now, if he was working for the company or not. And the man sat him down and listened to his story. And after he told him, he said, well, no, I believe Carl was right. You're fired. And that's when the thing hit the fan. He told all the other employees.
Wow.
And I was walking out of the office that afternoon, and this one come over and said, Carl, he said, do you have problems this afternoon? I said, not as I know of. He said, this one guy come in and was telling me a bunch of stuff, and it was hard for me to believe that you did it. I said, what did he say? He said, oh, this and that and all that. And finally he said, you fired him. I said, oh, that part's right. he said, okay, you fired him, you fired him. And when he went back to talk to him, he said, yeah, if he fired you, you're fired. He said, I believe, and when I put a man in charge, he's got the responsibility of what I put him in charge of, and I'll back him up 100%. I said, oh boy, that's nice.
That does sound nice.
So that's the way it went. If he didn't do what I said, and I didn't like his work, I talked to him. Well, if I didn't like what he said, I said, you're fired. And it took them about 3 weeks to figure out what I said goes. They'd go around me and then Monday morning, he called all the subcontractors that he had working for him together. He said, I've called you guys together to explain something that I think needs attention. They listened to him. Some said, oh no, 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 oh no. And he said, well, why not? He said, Flinner doesn't know what he's doing. And he said, oh. So he said, what company do you work for? He called the company manager over. And he said, what are you calling me for? He said, we got a little problem. And he said, what's that? He said, your man don't want to do what my man tells him to do. And I'm the company, and what I tell them to do, they do it. He said, well, maybe he's wrong. He shook his head. No. So he called all the contractors together, told them. And now Flinner runs this project, and we back him up. So if you tangle with him for something, he's going to tell you what he thinks, and you better do it. They come out there talking, and he's telling this about that. And next day he called all the company that he had signed up working for him and the company managers and told them what was going on. And he said, I'm not going to have that in my company. I put a man in charge, and that man's in charge.
Flinner's in charge.
Flinner's in charge. And the guys kind of said, well, we don't know about that. We don't like Flinner. He don't know what he's doing. And we refuse to work for him. He said, oh, well, that's good.
Flinner's still in charge.
So when he called them together, he asked them, all right, you're responsible for who your man works under here, and I'm responsible for the man that sees he is the man, and your guys are on the wrong. He called all the contractors together and talked to them and told them, laid it right on the line. I own a company. Flinner works for me. He's in charge of projects. And what he says goes. There's no need to come to my office. I won't see you. And boy, that's when it hit the fan. They talked it over and milled it over and took the rest of the day off. And I started thinking now, what have I started here? And it had me a little bit upset for a while. And then I started lining the project out. How I wanted to go and the time I had to do it in. I said, oh, I'm going to stick with my story. So when the morning came, I called them all together. The company that they work for, their manager, company managers, and told them, I said, I've got a problem here. Your men don't want to work under me. And they said, well, do they have a reason for it? I said, to my estimation, no. I said, I'm going to have a meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to have the manager of my company here, and I'm going to iron this thing out the way I want it to go. Well, you're not that big. So then Monday morning, 10 o'clock, he said, I'm free. I said, well, come on over to the project. He came over and sat down, and he invited in all the contractors, subcontractors that he had signed up to work on that job. He called him in. I didn't know that at the time. But when they showed up on the job, I said, something's wrong. So he called them in, said, we're going to have the decision here made. He talked to the contractors, and he asked them for one question. Do you want to work for this company? I want an answer now. 4 or 5 of them said, no, we don't want to work for you. He said, good. And they said, what do you mean, good? If you don't want to work, we don't want you to work. And one of them spoke up and said, you mean you're firing us and letting us go? He said, you're absolutely right. And he called them all together and said, now either you do, we own the company, Flinner's in charge of the projects, and what Flinner says goes, and we don't want to see any of you in our office. There's no need to go around him because you can't make it. And that's the way it went. In a couple of weeks we had it all straightened out. Half of them are gone, half of them still there. And the ones we had there, they went to work. And then we hired more.
More staff.
Yes.
Wow.
Flinner's in charge.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of it. Flinner is in charge.
Yeah.
That's what they said. And that's what he told them.
Almost
Exactly.
story,
Yeah.
So, Carl, is this the first time that you've ever come to one of the Pearl Harbor ceremonies?
Yes.
This is. What are you looking forward to it? Anything in particular?
No.
You've gone out to the USS Arizona Memorial. I believe you've gone to the Battleship Missouri as well too, and you've already been to Kaneohe Marine Corps Base. Marines. We know Don enjoyed that especially. You guys going out to any of the other bases or such while you're here? Or anything?
Tomorrow we have we're going to Punch Bowl tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead, Carl.
What I think,
Mhm.
they did damage to
Mhm.
us.
Yes, sir.
We didn't cause it.
Mhm.
They brought it on themselves.
Mhm.
And they got to pay.
Mhm.
And they can figure out how they're going to do it.
Mhm.
And that's the way it's going to go,
Okay.
as far as I'm concerned. And if it means slap them in the face a couple, 3 times, well, I slap them in the face and get it over with and start over new.
Carl,
Hmm?
has it brought back some memories being here this week?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They were wrong, they knew they were wrong, and they should be punished. And punishment we will do. Of course, I served 18 months in Japan as occupation duty, overt, but we got it done. They knew what they done was wrong. They lost the combat fighter, and they paid for it. We put occupation forces in Japan, And Italy, they bowed out. Let's see, it was Italy, Japan, Germany. That was the three. Well, the other European companies took care of Germany, so I didn't have to worry about them. I just had to, Italy bowed out. She wasn't worth a heck. So we didn't pay attention to her. So all I had was Japan. Well, when the Japanese met with the Americans to sign the treaty that they had turned those things over to them, that ended that. So we were in complete control then. What we said and done to them was the law. We did everything here there. It just took a little bit of thinking and where to put the information, and we did that, and we was in control.
Of course. Okay. So, Carl, we're just about wrapping up, but you know, what message do you have to maybe future Army soldiers or Airborne? What would be your message to them?
Well, in one position, like we're in right now on this job, you can't give it to somebody else. You got to iron it out yourself. So if they get in a position like that themselves, then they got to figure it out. I don't even giving them information on something that I don't know about, and some things let them figure their own situation out.
Gotcha. Okay. You know, Carl, I want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate your service to our country, and I'm so grateful that I was able to talk to you.
Good.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Did we get it straightened out?